Yes, as I said, the rental market, it has seen a surge in available properties. Listings jumped 34%, as I said, from Feb last year to Feb this year, rising from just over 8,000 to 10,805. This oversupply has led landlords to offer incentives, free weeks of rent, grocery vouchers up to $500, even furniture packages to lure potential tenants. Some lords are even struggling to find tenants, and it's a stark contrast to previous years when demand far outstrips supply. Real estate agents say competition between landlords is heating up, making it a great time for renters to shop around and negotiate better deals. However, Renters United warns that the power imbalance between landlords and tenants still remains significant, pointing out that while incentives are appealing, renters still face challenges such as short notice evictions and rising living costs. Well, we all face those, don't we? They are advising renters to negotiate not just for better rental prices, but also for longer term arrangements to lock in our favourable terms. Mike Atkinson, Managing Director of Aspire Property Management, describes the market as a game of musical chairs. Except now there are more seats than players. And he joins me now. G'day, Mike.
Hi there, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. It'd be fair to say, wouldn't it, Mike, that it is at the moment a renter's market?
Yeah, it is. And I think the number that everybody sort of keeps mentioning is Trade Me publish how many new listings they have every month, and then they compare that to the month last year. But they don't actually, that number actually misses out how many properties are actually available for rent. So for me, that is the actual supply of the rental properties rather than just how many new listings there are.
Right.
So if we look at across New Zealand at the moment, there's 12,964 listings available, and this time last year there was only 8,300. So it's actually 56% more listings than this time last year, because there's just not the demand on the other side to have them actually get rented. So they're sitting on the site for a lot longer.
Is it the same, Mike, everywhere? Like, I mean, around the country, are there certain areas or cities noticing it more than others?
Well, what I've seen is they published the data yesterday about the rent increases or decreases across the country, and you have seen in some of the regions that the rents have gone up. So in those areas, that would indicate that they're probably not struggling as much as Auckland. I mean, Auckland is up 58% from this time last year, so Auckland is definitely feeling the pinch. We manage properties in Hamilton and Tauranga as well, and that seems to be a bit more business as usual than Auckland.
And you describe the market like musical chairs. I gather that is what we're talking about, the sudden shift of supply and demand.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's why we are seeing landlords have to either, adjust the rent or offer some sort of incentive to try to get the tenants over the line. That's been happening in commercial real estate for years. But typically, your leaseholder signs up for a bit longer, but it's very common for the landlord to throw something in. And residential's never had to do that, because you used to just open the door and choose out of the 5 best people that came through, and it's just not that, the market isn't there for that anymore.
Yeah, so let's talk these incentives, Mike. I mean, I mentioned it in the intro. There's grocery vouchers, there's free week rent, or even more, a few weeks rent free. Have there been any others, or unusual or creative ones that you could tell?
Those are sort of the main ones that we've used when we've needed to use them, and we've used them primarily in apartments, just because often they are sort of very similar. But a lot of people are just dropping the rent by $10 or $15 a week. That's $520 over the year, and if you get $20 off the rent, that's double that. So we are using the free week's rent. At the moment, it's just about trying to find your landlord that great tenant. And, some properties, it might be adding a dishwasher or agreeing to paint a bedroom that is an unsightly colour and that never mattered before. But now that is what's stopping you from getting a tenant. So it's a great time to go and make that a neutral colour.
Are you or are landlords worried, Mike? Have they told you about this trend continuing? Do they think migration or population growth, do you think, might balance things out? Where are we headed? Look in your crystal ball, Mike.
It could. Yeah, well, this time last year in Auckland, for example, there was 3,600 listings at this time, and it just climbed all year. But the year before that, it was 3,300, and it stayed flat all year. So it's really looking like it's just going to be determinant on the number on the demand side, and that is a bit harder to track than just the supply. But so we have been so January, February, and March of this year. January we were averaging 3 groups at every viewing. February 2 groups, and then in March we're down to just 1 group at each viewing. And in January, we had to drop the price on 4.2% of our listings, February 39%, and March 40% has had a price drop. Now, that's a drop from the listed rent, so sometimes landlords do try to seek a higher rent. But in terms of just your average mum and dad investor, this is information that's getting out to them now, and a lot of them have sort of thought that it's just been business as usual over the last 25 years where you put the rent up every time you get a new tenant, and that's probably not going to be happening at the moment.